Welcome back, Successors. You've wandered off the path, and that means it's my turn to keep you entertained for a little while. So, hi! It's been a couple of months since my last video. You know, where I just casually dropped a headcanon-heavy lore/theory video and then pieced the heck out. There's a reason for that, I promise. I've just been wrapping up some of my college stuff, and for those of you who follow me on socials or hang out in Discord, you probably already know I've been in cosmetology school for a while now. Almost 9 months. Well, your girl is officially graduated! And yes, we will get a full video on how that went, but for now, I'm just panicking over state boards. Because the written exam has over 100 questions. Save me. But that's not today's video. Today we're starting part 1 of our 4-part continuation to the Code Vein 2 Doesn't Remember the Bad Ending, but Still Bleeds Like It Does video. I'll drop a little clicky link right here for anyone who hasn't seen it. It will help make this video series make more sense, since it's a continuation to our, lore, theory, headcanon idea. But don't worry, you don't actually have to watch it to enjoy this. It's really just one thing. What if our companions became Frenzied Successor boss fights? Real talk, I've wanted to make mini animations to what I imagined, and I wanted to add it into the lore video, but that was already 43 minutes long, so I decided we'd split them up into their own individual speed draw videos. Now, I'm not a game dev, and I've never actually drawn monsters or monster designs before, but I've beaten Code Vein 3 times. I've played Elden Ring, Into the DLC, I've played Bloodborne, I've played a number of other things like Nioh 2 and Sekiro, so I'd like to think I'm at least a teensy bit qualified to design boss fights. And we're going to be starting off strong with this one. We're going to be starting off with Mia. So, I won't lie to you, this is a lot of me rambling cool ideas and movesets that I thought just kind of snapped together. I was able to organize them a little bit, but yeah. Canonically, Mia would be taking on the Relic of the Breath, and if I remember correctly, maybe 1 or 2 other relics in the bad ending. And speaking of the bad ending, she does end up in Nicola's old crypt. And since her Artemis blood code already gives us tons of ranged and ice-based gifts, I decided let's go ahead and lean into that. It pairs perfectly with her weapon of choice anyway, which is the bayonet, so that would be our baseline. But our hard lean? I wanted her to feel like a Banshee-Yukiona hybrid. See, Mia's always been deeply rooted in family, right? And Banshees, traditionally, are female spirits who herald the death of a family member, usually by wailing, keening, or shrieking. I actually think that Banshee is actually pronounced Bianchi, but I could be wrong. Anyway, that mythic tie-in felt really, really good here. And the Yukiona, that actually came from the setting that her crypt was. I mean, she's on a tall, snowy mountain. Come on, it basically wrote itself. But, that said, let's get into a little bit of combat design. I wanted Mia to feel like a quick-fire threat. I don't use the bayonet personally, but I do know that it's I-core intensive, because it costs I-core to basically fire off shots. So I really wanted to lean into the idea of her using high-speed range pressure, with a big focus on drain attacks through a stinger-type blood veil. Now, you won't see it in the speed draw because I wasn't sure how to do it, but my original concept for Phase 1 had the stinger wrapped around her torso, kind of like it was frozen to her, encasing her heart. But in Phase 2, it would crack off, revealing a shattered ribcage with a still frozen heart underneath. High risk, high reward, visceral zone unlocked. That transformation felt really good for a Phase 2. Because, let's be real, this isn't Mia anymore, this is the Successor of the Brass 2 centuries later. It is also the relic simply wearing the shape of a girl who froze before she ever got a chance to grieve. Okay, you can't talk boss fights without talking ambience and sound design. So let's talk. In combat, whenever her form is wailing, she obviously doesn't have a mouth because she has her mask already over half of her face. But what you do hear, it would be like wind chimes, just kind of twist into a shrill distortion. Maybe those high-pitched shrieks end up being more like mechanical cues, like every wail or howl would trigger an AoE frostbite zone. And I don't think she would pace like other bosses either. I think she would end up more waiting. Like she would stalk just at the outer edges of the arena, forcing you to move forward, or end up dealing with icicle shards that she would summon in mimicry of her bayonet. But back on sound design, whenever the stinger would swing, I kind of imagine this metallic drag-like, like ice pulling through steel. You know, you've heard it before. And when her attacks are charging up, you would get this layered violin echo. You know, the kind that you would hear through a horror movie crescendo? Something like that. And throughout the entire fight, just like close your eyes for a sec and picture a cold zone with shrill, like, violins, cracking ice, and howling winds that you really only hear during a snowstorm. That's kind of what I picture for the sound ambience. Alright, let's refocus back on the combat. We're going to talk about our core moveset. These are abilities that are going to kind of define her all the way from Phase 1 into Phase 2. Now, these are just ideas that I've named with ideas of how they function, but here we go. The first idea would be a crystalline volley. It's basically like a 3-shot spread, not unlike the GIF Icarus Ice, but instead of like bouncing around randomly across the arena and the walls and the ground, these would end up homing in on the player. She would cast it when you're playing keep away and refusing to get close. Next up, we would have what I don't really like the name for it, but it's the best thing I could think of, is the Frozen Latch. It would be kind of like a burst of roots, like icy roots going underneath your feet, staggering you on contact. I was basically thinking something similar to what we see during the Frozen Empress fight in the DLC, but this one would be a lot more stagger focused than damage. Now here's my favorite, the Breath of Silence, the AoE frostbite trigger. Remember that AoE I mentioned earlier? This is it. After a long, still moment, watching her shoulders rise with a silent exhale, the air would pulse outward in a ring of frost, inflicting frostbite. Time it right, and you can dodge right on through. Next is the Stinger Feint. This would be a reactive counter. If you're constantly diving behind her to spam attacks, she'll end up snapping that stinger in a whip feint behind her. It's not a full attack, not yet. Just a punishing swipe if you're standing too close. And those are our basics. But now let's amp it up for Phase 2. Phase 2 is where Mia would begin to get more aggressive and really lock in on zone denial. For example, the Hollow Whip. In this attack, her stinger would lash into a sweeping 180-degree arc, tracking you mid-animation. And if you're unlucky, you'll get pulled straight into a visceral or parry of her own. After that, we have the Permafrost Spiral. This would be her signature zone denial move. She would swing the stinger, theoretically in a full circle, launching 6 ice shards that spiral outward and detonate in delayed bursts. What happens is these blast zones would end up lingering, becoming frostbite-inflicting areas for about maybe 10 or 15 seconds, forcing repositioning or punishing those who are getting greedy with their healing. And finally, this one's my favorite. It is the Stinger Bind, our instant kill mechanic. As seen in my earlier sketches, she can wrap the stinger around you. It ends in a plunging strike straight into the character's shoulder. And depending on your blood code, that's a one-shot kill. Because I've been one-shot far too many times just because of my blood code setup in past playthroughs. We all know the pain. You know, maybe if I would use blood code other than Prometheus, but that isn't happening. And that would be her kit, designed to feel haunting, precise, and merciless. She would end up punishing people who are indecisive, exploiting bad positioning, and really leaving no room for second-guessing yourself. which is exactly what we want it to be like, considering that she would be kind of like a DLC boss. Now that we've covered her combat kit, let's talk strategy. Or more specifically, what you'll see depending on your playstyle. For our aggressive melee builds, you're living dangerously. You're constantly at risk of stinger stab counters and drain bursts. Your window to punish is going to be during her long casting animations, or better yet, when her heart is exposed in phase 2. This is your golden moment to land a visceral or time a parry, but mess up your spacing and she will make you pay for it. Hello, one-handed sword with melee users. Hi, I see you. After that, we have our range builds, and oh no. You chose range against Mia? You poor thing. In this, she would end up mirroring your playstyle with projectile superiority, constantly trying to force you into mid-range. Those crystalline volleys we mentioned earlier will hunt you down, and the AoE pressure would keep you moving. But if you kite carefully and pack gifts that let you snap in and out of range fast, you should be okay. Next is our defensive or our turtling builds. And I get it, I see you, you're playing it safe, shielding, baiting, blocking, solid strategy. You'll still be punished with stinger stabs, but your biggest threat is going to be the AoEs, especially Breath of Silence and the coiled stinger plunge. Not fun. But there's a silver lining here. You'll have more time and control to target her phase 2 hard exposure for big damage, if you stay calm and don't get greedy. And finally, we have our spellcaster or our gift-heavy builds. Ah yes, the arcane enjoyers. You're coming in with elemental gifts, light armor, and probably 0 dodge tolerance. Good news, you can match her at range, and even disrupt some of her casts if you're aggressive with your stagger-heavy gifts. Bad news, depending on your code, you are squishy. One misstep during Breath of Silence or Permafrost Spiral and you're frostbitten. Or dead. Or both. Your best bet? Time your cast between her volleys. Keep moving, and stack up anti-frost gifts or passive to survive phase 2's chip damage zones. And I will be honest, that's all I've got. I wanted her to feel like she would belong right alongside a DLC boss. Dangerous, haunting, and memorable. I don't know if I managed to do it. Again, I'm not a boss fight game designer. But here's our biggest takeaway with Frenzied Mia. Be patient and don't get greedy. Which, let's be honest, is the pot calling the kettle black, because my playstyle is quick and greedy as hell. But this version of Mia, she's not the companion we remember. She's what's left, almost 2 centuries later, in the timeline we set up for our other video. But with that all said and done, I really want to ask, how'd I do? Are there any game design folk out there who think she'd be a fun boss fight? Or even people who play Souls-like in general who think that she'd be fun to go against? Do you have any mechanics that you think would be better suited for her, or maybe things that we should take away? Drop them in the comment section. I genuinely want to hear, because this was actually a really fun experiment, and I'm seriously looking forward to the remaining 3. Either way, this was super fun to make. Be sure to keep an eye out, because next up, it's either going to be Jack or Yakumo. Thanks for joining me today, my kitsus. Be sure to like and subscribe, and until next time, stay wild, stay sharp, and please stay hydrated.